everybody. Hi. Hey. Hi, how are you? It's me, Jeff, from podcasts and comedy and stuff. It's me, Jeff May, and welcome to another episode of Jeff Has Cool Friends. I am Jeff, and I have cool friends, and this cool friend, I'm so excited to have her back. She was on the previous show relatively early, one of my favorite people in the world, one of the most talented writers on the planet. You have absolutely enjoyed a lot of the stuff that she has made. Ladies and gentlemen, Jen Muro. Jen, hi.
Hello, how are you?
Oh, I'm great. I'm so excited to have you back. I have missed you on the show.
Yeah, it's lots happened, so I think we should talk.
Yes, because last time you said you had some things that you couldn't talk about, which is, I'd say, in television, one of the hardest things to do, I'm going to guess, is working on so many cool things and then not being able to talk about them, especially in animation.
Yes,
because
absolutely.
things must take forever.
NDAs, contracts, and yes, because animation takes a lot longer, it's like, oh yeah, I did that 2 years ago. and yeah, you're always living in the past or the future. You're never really living in the present when it comes to that.
And most recently, a thing that you had you hinted a little bit, but you didn't say anything out loud because you obviously couldn't. But you said you had really big things coming from a property that you are really excited to be working on. It turns out that was Critical Role Vox Machina, which has just been released. It just started being released. I mean, it's as of publication of this episode, and as of recording, we are in the middle of season 1, which you worked on.
I did indeed, yes. I've known the guys for a very long time, and we did the Kickstarter, and everything exploded into $11 million, and then everyone went, oh, what's this? And then Amazon got involved, and Tim Mouse was already attached, and then it got bigger, and we got more writers, and we got more runners, and we did the whole thing, and it's off and running. And now it's finally, and the pandemic did slow things down in terms of delivery, but we're finally here.
It sounds to me like there were a lot of cooks in the kitchen there.
Yes.
Was that a benefit to getting, many hands, making the burden light? Or do you find that having that many people involved, wonderful people, of course, but does that sort of hinder the process, or does that build upon the process by sort of being able to allow more people to sort of lift up and produce?
I think there were bumps in the road in the beginning, just for like any new endeavor. Mm-hmm. So I think things smoothed out. I think things had to be figured out and maneuvered to go, oh, okay, this is new. Now, how do we do this part? And so once all the pieces fell into place, it became a smooth machine. So I think it's going along great, and it looks amazing.
It does.
Yes.
It's
turned out great. I'm very proud of it.
It's funny because Critical Role was something that my fans kept trying to get me to enjoy, and I'm sure I would enjoy it. I just never had the time.
Right.
And then this show comes out, and of course I know that you worked on it, and so I'm like, well, now something Jen did, I have to watch it. That's just the rule. And I watched it, and I really enjoyed it. It is, for lack of a better term, it's like watching the old Dungeons and Dragons cartoon, but with cursing and comedy.
And gorgeousness and good animation.
Yeah, well, sure.
Yes, it really is a dream come true, because I played D&D when I was a teenager. And when I was a kid, that was one of my favorite shows, the original Dungeons and Dragons. And so, like, if there's a wish list, that's definitely on my wish list of things I want to write. Like, there's a few things I haven't written yet in the business I'd like to, but they're really getting checked off more and more and more.
You really are jumping ahead of this interview, because that is literally one of my questions.
Okay.
Okay. So let's do that then, because there are other properties that you've worked on. And so I'll let people know out of the way, Star Wars, you've worked Marvel, you've worked DC, Star Trek. Now we know, because we're going to go deep into that with Star Trek Prodigy. What properties that you have not yet worked on do you really want to work on?
Yeah, there's two I've come to the conclusion I probably won't get to write on, which is Futurama and The Simpsons, because it's a certain muscle that I have that muscle, but I write so much action. I can't imagine them going, hey, let's get Jen Muro to do Futurama, although it is a lot of sci-fi. So yes, Futurama would be my dream, and The Simpsons would be my dream. And there's probably like a few others that I'm forgetting. Like, I mean, Indiana Jones would be great if it existed. It doesn't right now. So yeah, that would be fantastic.
But there's lots of stuff didn't exist until it does.
So that's what I'm saying. Right. So Futurama and The Simpsons are the first things that pop in my head because they are the bones of why I have the comedy I have. And that and Golden Girls, but that's not existing.
That seems to me like if you were to get Futurama, you would also be able to get The Simpsons or vice versa. Like it seems like when they're that tied together.
They're connected, yeah. It's in my DNA, and so that would be a dream come true.
Would the challenge of pivoting from action to like that sort of peppering of comedy, like that muscle, because you said it's a different muscle to flex.
Well, it's a different muscle. I mean, not for me, because I started in comedy. I did mostly comedy up until 2015. So no, but I don't know. I haven't flexed it on screen. So I thought they'd be like, she doesn't do that. So we can't. A good sample really helps that. A good comedy sample really helps that.
Yeah.
But no, I flex it a lot. And actually, if you saw The Legend of Vox Machina, there was a lot of comedy in that episode that you can kind of got her peppered in there.
It does have that sort of that modern animated comedy, that like edged comedy to it. It is hilarious. Like the sexuality in that show is very funny. The way they play it out there, and the tension is usually resolved in a very clever ways. They cover all of the archetypes very well. Mm-hmm. And these are also characters that have been established by this previous existence of Critical Role.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, and these are funny guys. So, I mean, we're just tapping into that. It was always going to be an action comedy in a lot of ways. Now there's serious drama in this, and even more is coming. Some dark stuff is coming, but just like the online game that they've been playing forever, there's so much comedy in it. So I miss flexing that. It's been a bit, and I love that. And actually Prodigy lets me do that as well. But yeah, there
is a harshness to the violence that I've noticed in this, where I was watching it, and there was one scene that really got to me, and it was later on because I had been watching for a while, and I was like, oh yeah, this is harsh. And then there was one scene that had, to put, for lack of a better term, had real Attack on Titan energy. Which was like a gristly violent situation. Yes. And I was watching it and I was like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, there's like there's a hint of an anime influence when it comes to stuff like that in Vox Machina.
It doesn't take the Western viewpoint of avoiding the visual violence on there, which I think really does. So you're edging this stress, and either it is relieved through comedy or it's heightened through that violence and drama.
Yeah.
And that's such a fine edge. It's fascinating to me, and definitely something that was, previously a blind spot to me. So I am coming in very blind to this show.
Which I'm glad in a way, because it'll give you an interesting perspective that I don't get that often from people.
Yeah, I do think that's really cool. And I am very excited about that. You also worked on Star Trek Prodigy since we left, which is this very interesting and different pocket of Star Trek, something that we haven't really seen before. So for those that are listening that might not be familiar with Star Trek Prodigy, what is this section of the universe?
I mean, Star Trek Prodigy is one of the first, other than the one from, I think it's the 70s.
1974, I want to say.
Yeah. That's animated. And it's technically for kids, but it's not. It's all family. That's like saying Jumanji: Welcome to the Jungle's only for kids. Like everyone can watch that.
I love that movie.
I know, it's such a great movie. I use that as an example a lot because it is kind of one of those perfect movies like that. So it's deep in canon of regular Star Trek. I mean, Captain Janeway's in it, hologram Captain Janeway's in it, and it is technically Nickelodeon, but it's on Paramount Plus with everything else. And there's deep lore and there's deep tech, and there's a history that's steeped in there, but it's a gateway show for adult Star Trek fans to bring their kids in. That
it is interesting. I saw a very interesting summarization, I guess, not of the show, but of the energy of the show. And it was, what if Star Wars characters woke up in Star Trek? Was the way it was described. And, I'm not as deeply rooted in Star Trek as you are. Star Trek is in your veins.
Yes, it is. Yes, I am 50% bourbon, 50% Star Trek.
And I'm starting Deep Space Nine.
Oh.
With the understanding that I'm aware that Deep Space Nine is considered the greatest Star Trek series of all time.
That's interesting. I mean, there's so many takes on that, but yes, I'm a huge fan. So I'm not going to argue with that. I'm a TNG person, but I mean,
after my third TNG rewatch, I was like, I think it's time.
Okay. I'm glad. That's great. You're going to the next one. That's awesome.
I watched The Next Generation through the pandemic twice.
Okay.
Which at this point in time, I was like, okay, that's enough.
Yeah, the first 2 seasons are tough to get through, so I'm very proud of you for even endeavoring that. That's some guts.
I mean, sometimes I think for someone like me who is sort of professionally watches media with a critical eye, those first 2 seasons are actually fantastic for me. Because if you want things that you can laugh about,
well, yeah.
You're just like, oh, okay.
100%. Okay, so then that's perfect.
Yeah, you're just like, oh, this is weird. This is the whole existence of the Ferengi. This is a problem, right? This is problematic, but we're just going to
problematic. It is.
Keep moving them forward.
But I'm glad to be a part of this universe now. It means everything to me. I mean, Star Wars was a dream come true. This is an equally dream come true in a different way.
It's like you have this hit list that you keep, in Kill Bill, when she's like crossing off all the people. It's like you've got Star Wars out of the way. Like, that's
I got Justice League out of the way. I got Spider-Man, that's great, and just keep checking those things off.
What one character is like the character that you either have enjoyed the most or you want to write so bad? Like if you could get a standalone script on any series where you get to focus on just one character.
Oh boy, I mean, Jean-Luc Picard would have been, I wasn't on that part, but of the Star Trek franchise, but I think that would have been huge for me for the TNG. The TNG crew would have been a definite dream come true. Luke Skywalker would have been another, but I did that, so that's great. That was checked off. Batman's another one. But off the top of my head, in terms of Star Trek, it would be Jean-Luc. But in terms of everyone, I mean, Indiana Jones would be another one as well.
Yeah, Indiana Jones is someone you'd like to take a swipe at, huh?
Yes, absolutely.
Indiana Jones is, I think, a very unique character's existence because the amount of stuff out there it's very limited.
It is very limited.
We have 4 movies, 2 great. We have, a series that didn't really take off, with the young Indiana Jones and like some young adult books that had come out, and then a couple of relatively weak comic books, weak in reception at least.
Well, I technically can check off slightly Indiana Jones because I did do some development right before the pandemic started on an Indiana Jones property. It didn't end up going, but I was in a room and we sat and we talked about like we did all the stuff. So that was a dream come true, even though it didn't get to screen in any way.
I talk about this. I've discussed this on the show before, but I think a lot of people don't know how even with successful people, the success you see is roughly 10% of the endeavors gone out. And that's with successful people. There is 90% of this is failed projects and meetings that went nowhere.
Or you sold something and it didn't end up getting to screen. That has happened twice. So
you've sold 2 things that just never made it up there.
Yeah, it didn't get past development.
That happens
all the time.
Really?
Oh yeah, tons of people.
And
you celebrate that. I celebrate it because look, you got there.
Yeah, you at least sold it.
Exactly, and that doesn't always happen. So it's the little successes I try to appreciate.
I do. Yeah, like that did happen with me where, I had that project a few years ago that everyone was like, oh, congratulations, I'm so happy. And I kind of like leaned into that, like, oh yeah, like, yeah, things are going great. And then after a while you realize this thing isn't taking off and you're like, man, I got to not accept these congratulations until the thing is actually made. But the process itself.
That's how I feel, because at first when I first sold my thing, I did not celebrate it until it was too late. And then I didn't get to celebrate that process at all. So it was like I didn't enjoy any of it. I enjoyed it by myself within my like secret world, and it didn't end up going. So it's like, just, you sold it, enjoy that. It might not go, but that's not the point. And I've felt so much better ever since then.
Yeah. You are, I'm a bit pivoting around a lot, but you are interesting to me. And when I say that, I'm not mincing words. I think you might be one of the most interesting people I know. You have this interesting air to you where you are a hyper nerd.
I am.
You're a hyper nerd, and we've talked about this before. You are a bit of an athlete. You are an archer,
Yes.
which I think is really. I know you're saying just a little, but that's really cool. You're a musician.
Yeah.
What do you play?
Guitar, bass, piano, things that are string.
String things.
String things. I was in a band, yes.
You went to school. You were going to learn how to do music for film,
Film
right?
scoring is what I originally wanted to go to USC for, but I ended up pivoting to film production. But yes, I thought I was going to be a composer. So yeah, no, it's in my blood.
There's that. You are an archer. You are a musician. You are a cartoon writer. You do not look like any of those things. You are, and again, it's uncomfortable to say out loud, but you're stunningly pretty. You're incredibly brilliant. You bring so much weird to the table.
Yeah.
That it's like, you're one of those people that when I know, even knowing you and knowing what you do, I always wonder where you find the time.
I've found the time less and less over the years, as especially since the pandemic. Actually, that's not true. The year of the pandemic, I found the time. But in terms of like energy, that's definitely gotten a little lower as I've gotten older. But I don't want to let those things go. So if I can keep up here and there where I can, I try.
Because we both talked about going to conventions early in the day, and it was not what they are now.
No, I remember just being able to walk on a floor.
What was your, do you remember the first convention that you went to?
Yeah, New York Comic Con 1994, maybe?
Oh.
Or 90, yeah, so I had gotten I got the Batman final page. You know, we've talked about that Batman, Harley Quinn from the comic book.
Mm-hmm.
I got the page, and like it's now worth, I'm sure, a boatload, but I got it for $75. No one was there. It wasn't like there were barely women. I mean, there weren't tons of women back then. They just didn't. I was one of the few, and of course, like you said, I didn't kind of fit the look of that. So it was used to get a lot more looks back then. And I'm not talking about leering. They looked terrified. They looked at you like, why are you here? Like, what do you want? Like, what's happening? It was interesting. Luckily, I actually didn't get very like whistle. I didn't get any of that stuff. Luckily.
You got the fear, which is better.
I got the fear. It was really weird.
I would say too, yeah, that like it was one of those times where back in the day, conventions were a lot more sort of basement-y. Like you're buying comics or you're meeting a couple artists, but it's not a big thing anymore.
And you used to be able to just be on a line and go see a panel and like you just, or walk in and sit. And you got to see like Star Trek people that, or like Xena or friggin' there's a million, like you just could do that back then. And it's, after 2007, 2010, like it changed in the 2010s completely.
Yeah, I think it was the Twilight effect, ironically. That
I thought it was the Iron Man effect too. Once like that kind of hit, the whole Marvel world started coming in, and that whole.
It certainly did.
Yeah.
That world of it's funny because we talk a lot about like how the superhero fatigue in films.
Yeah.
And people are just like, are people over it yet? And I'm sitting there and I'm like, no, you don't understand what it was like to have to convince my dad to bring me to the first showing of Tank Girl.
Yes.
Because that's all we had.
That's all we had. I mean, Batman '89 was a huge thing for a lot of us because that's what we had. I mean, and then we had sort of Dick Tracy and like,
I bought a Dick Tracy premiere shirt at a flea market. I was very excited to get it. It was like my size, because it was like a large, but from 1990. And a 1990 large is like not the same as a now large.
Correct.
It is so long. It's like a nightshirt for me. And I was so bummed.
And you're 100 feet tall.
Yeah, it's the longest shirt I've ever seen. And I don't know what I'm going to do with it because I like the shirt, but it looks ridiculous. ridiculous on me.
I think you just have to wear it around the house.
I mean, it's not even comfortable though.
Oh, you can cut it. You can make it into a cutoff.
That feels like a sin to destroy something. Like, I mean, you've seen my collectible world.
Yes, but it is also a sin to keep it hidden in a closet away.
I know. I don't know. Like, should I find somebody that wants it? Like, I feel like I should find somebody that.
You're 9,000 feet tall. I just keep raising your height. Yeah, but you are like 6'5". Like, who are you going to find?
That tall.
How tall are you? 6'2".
Like 6'4", 6'3 and a half, 6'4".
Okay. Oh, six. Okay.
I try. I don't add inches. That's not the way I do things.
I don't know who you're going to find. I'm sorry. I think you're stuck with it.
I think a heavier person, it would fit better. I think they might fill the shirt out better.
Oh, I see. Okay, got it.
You know, like it's one of those things where maybe me, because I'm now this sort of like I have a mild sort of beanpoleness.
Yes, you have a svelte now. You are svelte.
I did the weight loss, which is great, but now a lot of my clothes don't fit.
You have sveltified.
Yeah, I called it the leanening.
The leanening. I love that.
Because I'd never really been lean.
Well, I'm outening because as you also probably know, I'm a cook, and so I like to cook fabulous things, and fabulous things cost calories.
Your Instagram is just a mix of just geeky and then food porn. And I cannot stress enough that everybody should follow Jen, and we will talk more about that in a second. Because that's great. But I want to talk more about sort of the writing. One of the things that I'm not 100% sure of with like definition is because you said like my episode of Vox Machina is out here. And I'm like, well, what aren't they all your episode?
Well, yes, I mean, I'm a co-producer on that, and I did touch all the episodes, and I did punch up things, and I was involved through them. But in terms of I'm the singular writer who, the writer credit on that specific episode, that's me.
So
episode 105 of Vox Machina.
I don't know. Like if I don't know, I'm going to guess that most people listening don't know about like what a writer's room is. And like the amount of feedback versus getting a writer's credit on something. Like, how does that work? And especially for something like this, where people have already sort of pre-written their characters.
Well, I mean, I think some of them did end up writing a little bit. I don't remember. I'll see how that ends up turning out. But the writer's room is a group of writers that get together. We break the show. We break the story. We go through the arc of how many episodes there are. And sometimes, there are shows where sometimes you're not guaranteed a script, especially in live action versus animation. You just help out on the series, and some you are assigned. Sometimes you get paid for that script. Sometimes you don't. It all depends. But the writers can get together, and it could be as small as 3 people or as big as 11 people. I mean, that's pretty rare these days.
Is it? How much of this part of the job would be political? Like how much of this would be getting a specific episode? Like, are you given an episode because you drew a number out of a hat? Like your episode is episode 5. How did you get episode 5? Did you want it?
Yeah, well, I think I've been very lucky in most of my rooms, which is which ones do you gravitate towards? Sometimes some of us in the room gravitate towards a certain episode. Some, I've never had a fight over an episode before. So I think in good rooms, it's you're either assigned because you're really good at a specific part of something, or you've pitched it. I mean, especially in live action, they do that a lot, where you've pitched the episode and it's your episode. But some it's just gravitating towards it. Some is timing or scheduling, or, oh my God, I'm out of town this month. Can maybe I switch episodes with you or something like that. That has happened. So in animation, I think it's definitely been very fluid in the rooms I've been in.
So an episode, like, even though you're all given an individual episode, you do have to wait until the episode before that is finished before you can start the next one, or would you outline it first?
I mean, sometimes there is overlap when it comes to outlining. Absolutely. There's usually crossover. I mean, they're usually, what is it? It's not toggled. It's staggered, I guess, or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it definitely helps, especially in very arc. In really one-off comedy stuff, it's much less that, but in terms of anything bingeable or arc wise,
And it seems like this is one of those like really huge deals. Like this show, in a way, is almost a bigger deal for like not society, because come on, but like for the world. Like this show is almost a bigger deal than something like Forces of Destiny, which is the biggest property in the world,
Right?
because it's this upstart, weird, historically weird, like the story of the success of Vox Machina.
Right. It's very unique. Absolutely. 100%.
So then to move forward and to be this thing, like, did you find like a heavy amount of pressure there, or was it because you were surrounded by so many people that were like, we got this?
I think there wasn't pressure there because this was the first time, the group had been doing something in this endeavor. I mean, I think the pandemic made it not more pressure. It just delayed things. So that was kind of stressful. It was like, oh God, we want to hit things for the fans and the Kickstarter. We wanted delivery dates for certain things, but obviously they're very understanding and things couldn't happen. But I think it is such a worldwide phenomenon. It's really interesting that some people don't know what it is, and then some group that absolutely does, and they fill stadiums of frigging people to watch this stuff. And I think it being on Amazon will make a significant difference. And I'd be curious by the end of the series, which the first season should be done by mid-February because they're dropping them 3 at a time. I'd be curious how it changes and how many more fans come in.
That is interesting too. Yeah. And it is also, I'm not going to really share my opinions on what platforms do what. I think Amazon Prime as a streaming platform is the only thing I don't abjectly hate about that company. I'm not going to ask you to make a comment on that for obvious reasons.
Oh, but I know how you feel. Absolutely.
One of the things about animation that has been really spreading like wildfire lately, I don't know how comfortable, it's hard to discuss this aspect of it, but is the money. Specifically because, I'm friends with a lot of animation writers, and a few of them, especially people like Joey Clift, have been sharing about the Animation Guild really pushing for sort of equity in the style of animation, of writing. Like you're writing in animation versus writing in live action. There's not really a difference.
There isn't, no. And I think people are starting to, I think live action writers in the past few years have started to come over to animation, and they're going, oh my God, what is this? Why are we getting paid so less? This is, and I think it's finally hitting. I have been yelling about it for 10 years, if not more. So I don't mind talking about it at all because I've screamed and yelled about it. I've tried to convince runners to go to the WGA and get WGA prices because writing is writing. And there's 2 unions. One is the WGA, Writers Guild of America, and one is the Animation Guild, which back in the freaking 30s, I think we fell under, and the writers fell under that for a multitude of reasons. And it is way over.
Probably none of them good, I'm going to guess.
And there was art, it was art-based stuff. And there are issues. There's legitimate issues in terms of storyboard artists who also write. There's complications there, but in general, just on paper writers, we got into this different union. The studios are now used to those very low prices. We get probably like 1/3 of what animation.
See, that's what I was going to ask. If there was, if like what the difference was per episode, like on average, like, and I don't really know what.
Let me just say this. I would have been able to pay off my house 10 years ago had I been getting animation money, because get live action money, because I've been doing this for almost 20 years now. My 20th anniversary in this business is like in 2 months. It's significant. And I did just do a new Marvel live action.
Ooh.
Yes, in the fall. And hopefully I can talk about that at some point too.
Yeah, that seems like a very NDA'd situation where
it is an NDA'd situation.
I don't know even how much I can ask. You have a show not that came out in the fall, so you're not talking a Hawkeye.
No, I wrote on it.
Okay, so you wrote on it during the fall.
Yes, during actually while being on Star Trek Prodigy, I was really grateful. I got a hiatus on one and got to go to the other, and then came back to Star Trek. But it was the first time I have always known the difference. I just felt it significantly.
You saw it.
I got the pay, and then I went, and it is criminal. It is absolutely criminal how low compared to a weekly rate, weekly pay, 40-hour week, weekly kind of pay. and script fees it's astronomically different.
I always remember you drive by like certain areas in LA and be like, yeah, that house right there, the guy wrote 3 episodes of Cheers.
Yep.
And he bought that house.
We get no residuals. I mean, we get 3 times less. That if you do the math on that, like, I mean, I don't even know what the minimums are right now for animation. I think it's like 7,000 or something. Anyway, minimums in live action are 3 times that much.
That is wild.
A weekly rate is 3 times. Like
literally the same work.
Yeah, especially now, because especially all these IPs, especially DC and Marvel and all these worlds have crossed over completely. And it's not, ever since Spider-Verse came out, I think that's when people are like, this should win the Oscar. And I'm like, are you guys ready to treat animation like a real thing? It's a medium. It's not, it's a media.
Yeah.
It's how you do it. It's not a different genre completely. It's
yeah. What was I think the last animated movie to be nominated for an Oscar was maybe Beauty and the Beast. Like that just goes to show you like how, or maybe Toy Story 3.
I mean, I think a lot of the Pixar stuff has, and that's a whole different animal. But in terms of I think it has really helped for live action WGA writers to come over to animation and go, this is not cool. I know there's nothing much they can do for us. They can stay in solidarity with us, but the Animation Guild right now is fighting for a new deal because it's time. It is about time. And it's not like companies are going broke here. You're not, it's not like we got to be like, we have to protect Disney. Like they're doing fine. There's a disparity, and I'm glad I'm not alone in it now, because I felt very alone and very frustrated by myself for years, and now there's at least a voice. Another thing you had mentioned, and it's very interesting because this is something I'm going to talk about that we've talked about privately, or that you've said you've talked about it publicly too, but something that you and I have discussed privately, and that really comes down to something that you just mentioned, which is live action writers deciding to come into animation. You have told me in the past how the gatekeeping of live action writing is very firm, and that animation writers were rarely allowed an opportunity to even try to write live action. Yeah, the points did not transfer. I always said that way. They just, because I was running stuff in animation, I would have to start at the beginning in live action. The points just did not transfer. Now, luckily, I'm at a point where I've been co-producer on a bunch of stuff. So going into this Marvel thing, I actually was a quite mid-level writer. So I'm very grateful for that. But it took pushing that door and beating the hell out of it. Like, talk about Kill Bill trying to get out of the coffin. Yeah. My knuckles are bloody. Yeah. How'd you get the Marvel? Like, was it like an audition process? It was my sample. It was my management and my agents. My management A3 is amazing, and that support but you have to have the right sample. And I happen to have written something that helps on this Marvel property that I had a very grounded sample that they liked, and it made a difference. Also, my credits over the years. I mean, I have legit high IP credits, and I think animation and live action in terms of IP is starting to meld. Like it's starting to matter to. They're like, look, we're animating the out of this show anyway. It doesn't matter. It's mostly. Well, that's a lot of it too. Yeah. I mean, even Prodigy shots are gorgeous. Prodigy is live action gorgeous in space. It's a ship. Of course, it's always been either a model or now CG. Yeah, Prodigy is just like, what if Guardians of the Galaxy, the characters were also all animated and not just half of the characters were animated? Yeah, we have the original characters from the original Star Trek stuff. When they called the Lion King live action, the new one that came out, and I'm like, that is a fully animated movie. Right. It's such a weird. It's a very weird part of the business, and also it's getting blurrier and blurrier. I think too that there are people that are calling attention to that almost indirectly. I think Favreau is a good example of that by doing something like the Lion King, or because he did the Lion King, right? I think Favreau did the Lion King. Did he do Jungle Book? He did do the Jungle Book, which by the way is by far my favorite one of those movies. Right. Now, I mean, look, you're right, but like what's the difference between special effects at that point or animation at that point? Well, because Favreau did do the Lion King in the 2019 Lion King, which is
I think maybe I'm guessing that locations might not have been the same, but like that is a fully animated movie.
The creatures, right? I mean the animals, yeah.
And now pulling Filoni, Dave Filoni into live action
Right,
with The Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah, and I mean he started under George, and I worked with him, and which is why I even knew about Forces of Destiny and Star Wars. And he is absolutely able to direct, and he's brilliant because he's an artist and he's knows storyboards and he knows storytelling. And look how good that translates.
Right. Here's a fun thing. I don't know if you know this, but Jeff has cool friends. That's the name of the show. I also have cool producers. One of the things is if you head on over to the show, if you are listening on the Patreon, hey, thank you. I appreciate you keeping me alive. That's fun, right? And one of the things you can do is if you pay $10 a month, which is a tiny bump in the regular price, you can get me to say your name as a big thank you to all these producers. So Jen, I'm going to thank some producers.
Yes, please.
We can talk about their names. We can have fun with them because some of them are really fun. For example, thank you to Big Booty Boy 42069.
Oh my God, yeah.
Hell yeah.
He was not messing around.
You're going to get a lot of comments about me not liking sports, by the way. We can discuss it later.
Okay.
The most well-prepared dead guy. Shout out to jumping rope, still a sport. Jeff not liking it, still a fact. That's wrong. That's wrong. I love jumping rope.
Oh, I'm going to sit all day and listen to these names. Go ahead.
Okay. Big Bad Bollock. Shout out to Jennifer Fendelander. Shout out to @AV Foundry. Shout out to Patrick Dorr. Shout out to Bart Fartigan. A cooler Steven, apparently. Huey. Nerd Numbers. Magnolia Frosty.
Oh, wow.
That's one that's gonna get bleeped out on the free episode.
Okay, fair enough.
Shout out to Andrew. I put producer on my resume, McGuire. Shout out to my good friend Parker Aylesworth. Shout out to 3 Jacob Trembleys in a trench coat sneaking into an R-rated movie.
Amazing.
Have you been to a movie lately?
No, I have not
No.
since before the pandemic. I know.
Fair. That's fair. You don't have to feel weird about that.
I know.
Yeah.
I know, but
I think I'm going to see Jackass.
what?
I think I'm going to see Jackass.
You know.
God, those movies are just so good.
Oh, dear Lord.
They're so fun, and they're just good bros doing bro stuff. Anyway,
producer names.
Shout out to Where's Clawful. Nice shout out to my favorite Masters of the Universe character. Shout out to Cronenberger Meisterburger. Shout out to It Was Me, Jeff. I've been giving you $10 a month since the beginning so you could afford more gas station Pop-Tarts, keeping you sluggish. Just slow enough for me to steal Christmas.
Boy, they know you.
They really do. Shout out to Tony Stewart. Killed a Guy is a t-shirt you should make for remarkably cheap on the internet. I don't know if you know this, but NASCAR driver Tony Stewart killed a guy.
Oh dear.
Yeah, well, that will happen. Shout out to L actually pays $13.46 a month, Seldo.
Oh.
So he's going more than 10, but he's above and beyond.
And specifics. I love specifics.
Or they. I don't know. Shout out to Aaron Meyer. Shout out to Jolly Buckaroo and The Last Yeehaw. You're a big Buckaroo Bonsai fan, right?
Huge Buckaroo Bonsai fan. Someone fabulous gave me an amazing Buckaroo Bonsai gift.
Oh, what? Get out of town.
Yeah, it was amazing. I haven't posted about it, but I think I will now. So
you're allowed to do that. One of the things that I lean into is I think I'm a pretty good gift giver.
You're an amazing gift giver. Also, you gave me an amazing He-Man and She-Ra Christmas special, like fully framed artwork, which was freaking incredible. I'm going to have to post about that this Christmas.
That, I believe, was a Dave Perillo piece. Another one of my very cool friends, too.
Might have even been signed.
It most definitely was.
Okay.
Thank you to the ghost of Dave Thomas. Thanks to Bruce made Terry fight Superman before he gave him karate lessons. I don't know if you remember that. You're actually, one of your writing partners is Terry.
What, writing partners?
One of your writing partners is Terry from Batman Beyond. Is Will Friedle.
Okay, oh my God. Okay, you had to Will. I was like, what is happening?
You're like, yes, my friend Will. I'm like, yeah, Terry. And you're like, he's a human being, a fully realized human.
You just threw me, but yes.
Yeah.
But yes.
One of the threads that you'll notice here is that a lot of people like to reference my other shows.
Okay.
Because, between this and Tom and Jeff watch Batman, you don't even like sports, unpopular opinion. There's a lot of like through lines in here.
Well,
So if you don't listen to any of those shows and you don't understand the producer names, that's fine because, this is the producer names. This is just a
callback. You're doing a callback. It's good.
Just a series of inside jokes.
I'm all about that.
I would like to thank the Digital Phil. I'd like to thank, my name is Jeff May, and this is not a Patreon name. This is a truthful confession that I do not like sports.
That made you read that, didn't they?
Bastards. Shout out to Silius Ruby, Jessica Robertson, Lisa Harden, who you've met, Lisa, before. She's my co-producer.
Yes. Yeah.
And one of my BFFs. Who's the master? Show enough. Kelly says, get your booster, you gaslighting dip turds. There's nothing more that I could ask for. Yeah. Children love the Meat Millie. Hey, can I borrow your copy of The Iron Giant? Taurus Bulba. At ZTP Whiskey, whiskey with an E, EY, on Instagram. Shout out to Burrito Mouth. Definitely shout out to Burrito Mouth. Shout out to Norm from Cheers. I'm going to give an extra special shout out to Norm from Cheers because he goes through and finds all of the curses in every episode and lets me know.
Nice.
So we can beep them out nice and easy. Shout out to Lemming Malloy. Jeff has candy in his pockets. Not always true, but often true.
Often, and sometimes it's probably sticky.
But, well, it's in the pockets, yeah. Mm-hmm. A lot of loose chocolate running around in those pockets. Shout out to Instagram and Twitter's at Bob_of_skull. Again, that's the smartest thing you could do is just promote your own on this. Shout out to Mackenzie. Sisyphus may be happy, but he's into CrossFit, so him. Chill. I'm never going to have a history podcast, you little so stop asking.
Oh.
They just want that. This episode again brought to you by the scene in Meet Joe Black where Brad Pitt dies. This show brought to you by two doctors in a row, Dr. Video and Dr. DNA. Shout out to Just Pivo. Shout out to Lisa McCarty at Comics with an X, Book Girl with a U. Shout out to Mike Gouts. Shout out to Cody Beck. Shout out to Mr. Billy Beck. Can you believe a married couple and they each individually donate? Isn't that kind?
That is super duper kind. There should be more couples that way.
There should be.
Call them power couples.
Yeah, this is like it's like a digital throuple that I'm in here with them.
You know what? That's fair.
Yeah.
And also probably very sexy.
Steven, there can be only one. I would like to add that there are two people named Steven that are having a war in the producer doc that I have.
God.
There is a Steven, a cooler Steven, and then a Highlander-esque there can be only one Steven. So
look what you started.
I don't mind it. I don't mind Steve Beef. Shout out to the Earl of Slander, Kimball, the casual Frankenstein. That'd be like, I guess, a Frankenstein wearing just like a t-shirt and jean shorts as opposed to like that suit that Frankenstein wears.
He's not in sandals, I'm okay.
That's fair. Well, what about in like August?
You're one of the very few people who can pull off sandals, Mr. May.
We live in a brutal climate in the summer.
I know. You know what? That's fair. But you have fabulous pedicure, so I'm sure it's okay.
I do all right. I don't know how I got away with not having hideous feet.
I know. Weird.
Like all these other dudes I graduated with, like their toenails are all weird. And I'm like, they're like, what do you do? I'm like, literally nothing. I wash them. And I clip my toenails sometimes.
That's it.
Is that all I needed to have pretty ass feet?
Yeah.
I'll take it. Shout out to Asking Seven, Tyler Wilgus. Shout out to Jeff using Deep Blue Sea memes to break bad news. I definitely did that to break the news of Betty White's death to some people on Instagram.
That's a deep cut, Jeff made deep cut.
Those happen. Gray Man of the Nightmare Potluck. Everyone is welcome at the table. Show me in the rules where it says a dog can't play basketball. Shout out to Funky J, Bartholomew Martinez, the fartiest of Martys. Shout out to Jared Ruan. I always feel like I'm going to get his name wrong. I always feel bad. Kool-Aid Molotov is ready for the revolution. Rad Mummy says, don't be a dick. Shout out to Goji. Shout out to Jeff Hates Competitive Fun. Also known as sports, I guess. And of course, finally, shout out to Rudy, Jerks Hate Cool Films, Rueda. Again, if you want me to say your name or pretty much talk shit on myself, or you want to be named another Steven, all you got to do is go to patreon.com/JeffMay and sign up for the $10 producer tier. There's still a few slots left. And I will say your name, and then me and the wonderfully talented Jen Muro, or somebody of similar guested quality will reference them.
That would be great. That was a blast, man. I could just do that all day. I'm not going to lie.
I got to be honest. I don't mind people creating content for me.
So great.
You have created something very interesting in a very unique way. One of the things that you were working on and was in the process of being produced was Primer.
Yeah, Primer.
Now, we have a very interesting backstory to Primer in that it is a graphic novel, a young adult graphic novel, created by you and Tom Krajewski.
Yes.
You two are a writing team for this book as well. You are also divorced.
Yes.
Amicably.
Amicably. Isn't that funny?
That is it's wild to me.
That's another, I guess that could add to my quality of cooking, archery, stable divorcee, functioning.
I'm only the archery part of that. That's all I know how to do is the archery part.
Yeah, so I'm really lucky. I'm really lucky that worked out.
Primer was this unbelievable hit for DC.
Yeah. It kind of took off, and it's really, really special.
You think it kind of took off?
But you know what? It was during the pandemic. It landed June 23rd, 2020. So we didn't get to do any of the cons. We didn't get to do any of the book signings. So I think honestly, it would have been even bigger. I'm not going to lie about that.
You're not wrong.
Yeah, made it.
This book sold out almost immediately out of its first print.
Yeah.
It is now currently, I believe, in its sixth printing.
Sixth, I think we're probably heading towards seventh printing. Yeah, it's crazy.
A seventh printing of a digest-sized, unique character, not tied into the rest of the DC universe until November of 2021.
Officially, before she was always a new character in the DC universe,
yes.
But yes.
And we didn't know if she was going to be, we didn't know if she was actually officially in this DC universe. It was a kind of a standalone story. Mm-hmm. Now Teen Titans Academy number 8 comes out in the regular DC universe, the mainstream DC universe. And who do we see? Mm-hmm. But we see Primer, and then another character, I believe her name is it Whistler? Whistler. That's my bad. We see these two characters from the very popular DC young adult graphic novels. And
yes, and that's dissipated now, but I'm glad we survived the dissipation of that.
Of the YA.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's out. I don't think they're doing much as far as I know right now.
Yeah, I mean, publication is strange, and DC has certainly gone through a lot here. But two questions. One, what did it feel like to have that book out? Something that's like a tangible, because you've done animation, but you can't hold a cartoon.
Yeah, like my name's on the cover. It's really weird to like have that. And our artist Gretel is amazing. She really helped this book come to life. And I think it was the combo of our comedy background, our sci-fi fantasy action background, and this amazing artist. And it just turned into this fantastic thing. It's pretty cool to hold something. Yeah,
the book has incredible energy. I had it pre-ordered at my comic shop. I read it. I devoured it. It's really great.
Kids seem to be devouring it too, which I'm thrilled.
It also has a lot of very dark scenes.
It does.
I mean, there's a scene where her father is getting arrested, and there's a struggle for a gun.
Yeah.
In that, I mean, it covers that darkness. So the feeling of holding that book, like what is that like?
It's even weirder to sign it. It's weird to like people want, like as a writer, I mean, I never asked for autographs before. It's a really strange thing for me. So to hold it and have a name and sign things, and also open like into the middle of the book, and there's this one image of Primer in it, like she's in this crazy blue wig, and I cried like the first time I saw it, because in the book physically, because it reminded me of X-Men in the 90s and Image Comics and J. Scott Campbell and all of those books I used to collect back then. And how I used to look at other people's artwork like that, and I was looking at mine and ours. It was an amazing, crazy feeling. It was trippy. It was trippy. It's like it was the I did it. It's that I point to the Clark Griswold Christmas Vacation at the end where he looks at the moon. He's like, I did it.
Yeah.
And I feel that way with a lot of these things, and that was one of them.
You want to know something really funny? I just watched that movie like last week.
Well, of course, Christmas is all year for you. It's great.
It's kind of, I guess.
I mean, that's my favorite. That's probably one of my top 3 favorite Christmas movies. So yes, and that's a great moment, and I always point to that. But that's how it felt. Yeah, it was really cool.
What did it feel like finding out that your character was then being implemented into the mainstream DC universe?
It was interesting because Tim Sheridan, who's a friend of mine, who I wrote on Justice League Action with, it was writing the book, and it was sort of like, kind of like, can we do this? Is this cool? Can we do this? I'm like, yeah, let's do this. And so they did it. And it was like, but it was a while before, like it this stuff.
Yeah, that's several months before the book gets published.
And then seeing it, I think it didn't hit me the depth of what it meant. I still think it doesn't, because I think maybe as a mom of Primer, I always kind of pictured her as a new character in the DC universe, because that's what she was. She was brand new, and she's real, and she was part of it. But I guess there's a legitimacy now that's even a bigger, wider thing that everyone else feels that way too. So I'm like, yay, great.
Yeah, that now it's officially happened.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's especially with the Teen Titans. I mean, come on, like that's perfect for her.
When I saw that happen, because I have the book, I have a copy of the book, obviously. Yeah. But when I saw that happen, I was like, it was a real moment.
Right? I mean,
and I didn't know if you had it the same way I did, where I was like, the implications of this are huge.
For me, it was less, and it didn't dawn on me compared to like you guys. And I'm it's okay. That's okay. I think it's just.
I think what that does, though, because what the implications are for me seeing that immediately is the implications are that means that the opportunities for animation, live action, like all of these things are now much more fully realized, because there are live action shows in the DC world. There are shows like Titans and Doom Patrol. Doom Patrol, by the way, one of my favorite shows on TV.
I mean, and there's some really good stuff, and Primer is perfect for. Obviously, she's perfect for animation, but I think also live action. I think that's as a strong younger female role. I think that would be really cool. And there's so many outlets these days. Look at HBO Max. Look at them in the CW. Right. There's lots of places. So I think that would be great.
And I think they've done a great job of of making television in all worlds that appeal to everyone.
Yes.
Which is something that you didn't really get before. I see this a lot with He-Man right now. There's a big schism in the He-Man world where people are mad that Kevin Smith wrote a He-Man story that also allowed a woman to grow. Because there's
that's always, how that part of the fandom is never going to go away.
And right now, because they're releasing these the He-Man the Origins, the toys, the action figures, and they're implementing a character named Sunman that was created by a black woman to give her children a positive black toy role model, to give and that's a great idea, and Mattel is embracing that. And I see people that are just like, oh, we're just gonna add black, and it's like, dude, like there's like one black person in all of He-Man. Right. Like people are mad that only 99% of things are made for them now.
Yeah, it's part of the fandom.
Now I'm seeing things like Batwoman, the Batgirl movie that's coming out. Right. We see Naomi is being released. You saw Supergirl. These are a lot of things that give young women a great opportunity to see how they can shine.
I had very few. I had I had the original Wonder Woman. I'm really grateful I had that, with Linda Carter. And then I was older at that point, but Xena, and then even older than that was Buffy. So I had a few, but not like it is now.
Very important for me for totally different reasons.
Well, yeah. Yeah. That's a whole other thing.
I mean, what? I'm not supposed to exist now.
Yeah.
You trying to censor me?
They're all hot. Hello.
It's true.
Which is why I am that hot.
That must be it.
That's the influence.
Well, you do have that sort of the Wonder Woman and Buffy, and you have all those vibes with
Well, they were influences on many ways, and by the way, also influences of my Halloween costumes over the years. I mean, look at Psylocke when we were.
We did when my rookie appearance with Sideshow was you and I appearing as Wolverine and Psylocke.
Yeah, that was pretty fun. That was a great day.
That was really fun. It was especially because they gave us free and then I got a mild career opportunity out of it.
You did.
So all in all, that's a big victory.
We're very lucky. We're both very lucky people. I mean, in general.
I loved, and I may have talked about this before, but the comments on that show were all about how they didn't want to see me, which was very funny.
Well, I mean, we were two other costumed women, and so that was
it was like you and Susan and me, and there's just like these two very hot chicks, and then this douchebag, and I'm just like, hey,
stop showing Wolverine, please.
I'm Wolverine, and they're like, F this guy. Why does he get to sit near ladies?
Well, we can't always have the magic of Halloween everywhere.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
You know what's really funny is I was watching something on YouTube, and a commercial of me showed up as one of the ads. Yeah, I was like watching something, and then I was just like, because I don't pay attention when the ads come on and go, hey everybody, Jeff May here, and I'm just like, excuse me, and I like looked up. A very strange thing to see.
That's kind of awesome.
It's funny.
It's kind of fun when your friends do voiceover for commercials, and you're like, wait, I know that voice. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, which one is that?
Yeah, it's really fun.
I think I did a joke where I was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I am going to want to skip this ad, YouTube.
Oh, no.
It's a joke. Everybody thinks that I have like a hair across my ass about it, but it's not the case. I like talking about it because it's fun. Well, it's funny too, but it's also like, and I think I may have mentioned this on a different show, but like I like using the fact that what felt like one of my biggest failures was actually my biggest step to success.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's all part of it. I mean, I have that too. Yeah,
my divorce was the same way.
Yeah, it changed me. It changed me significantly. I would not be the person I am now, and even though that was only a few years ago.
Yeah, people, because I was only married for a year and a half.
Okay.
And people are just like, "Oh, you pull it, it's a little bit much, isn't it?" I'm like, "Yeah, but we're failing hard, and it's not going to change. I can make my life better,
right?
Or I can just die unhappy like all of our grandparents did."
Well, unfortunately for me, my divorce was official right 2 months before the pandemic started, and I didn't kind of get to be out in the world. So it's been in a unique, interesting, one long day since then. And it has definitely changed me. And even if you were only a year, it definitely changed the hell out of you.
Yeah. I mean, I decided within a year of that to retire and move across the country and switch career paths. That wouldn't have happened. It's the same way, like getting let go from a company that wasn't going to do much to push me forward for their own reasons. I'm not a toy. I don't make,
right.
They can't make me and then profit $300,000 off of it. It's just not the case. So yeah, it makes sense. And I was always like, yeah, but it's my failure that I then turned into creating something for myself. And
that's
so
often the case.
And so I do think it's important that we talk about that.
Yeah.
But there is that. You are, it turns out, an absolute delight.
Oh, thanks. I'm glad that turned out that way.
It's everything. Pre-divorce, post-divorce, you have remained absolute top of the game. We are going to talk a little bit more in some bonus content on the Patreon. But before that, we are going to say goodbye to all the free listeners. But before we say goodbye to that, before that, what are some of the things that we want people to watch? What are the things that we want people to see right now? What should we be watching to support Jennifer Muro?
Oh, well, I mean, The Legend of Vox Machina on Amazon, which is it's just dropping now, and it's dropping all the way through the end of February. That would be fantastic. Star Trek Prodigy. I mean, my episodes won't be for a very long time, but I'm super proud of what our room is doing, what they're doing, what they did that previous season. So that's on Star Trek Prodigy is on Paramount Plus, and the first 10 are dropped, and then the second half of this season will be coming down the road this year. And those are the two out right now. And then I'll come on in the future for other stuff. But I'm on Twitter, and you can just keep up there.
You can follow Jen on Instagram at official Jennifer Muro. Is that right?
Yeah, it is right.
And then you are at Jennifer Muro, and that's JenniferMuro on Twitter. You added an accent over the O.
Yeah, I had found out that when my father's side came to this country, they took the accent off, and it was always it was interesting because there's the Spanish part of that, and I had no idea, and I kind of was like, you know what, put it back.
So everybody follow Jennifer Muro.
Yeah.
Hey. On Twitter as well. Just such a brilliant and wonderful follow. Again, we have a little bit more coming over on the Patreon. And if you want to hear that, head on over to patreon.com/JeffMay to give that a listen. You can also check out other shows like Ugh Fine with Kim Crawl, which is the monthly show I do on that Patreon, as well as more coming. Don't forget to check out Tom and Jeff Watch Batman on the Gamefully Unemployed Network, as well as You Don't Even Like Sports and Unpopular Opinion, both on the Unpops Network. Jen, thank you so much for hanging out with me.
Always. This is always fun, and I have missed this, so thank you.
I've missed this too. All right, let's go over to do some bonus content. Hey everyone, our artwork is created by Justin T. Brown, who can be found at Artness by Justin Brown on Instagram, as well as artnessbyjustinbrown.com. That dope music you heard is by Troy Nababon, available at Troy Nababon on Instagram, as well as at troynababon.com. Nababon is spelled Nababan, and boy, does that